Getting ready to take on your lawn? Make your first move with the reliable performance and power of Steel tools. From hedge trimmers and mowers to string trimmers and more, right now save on select gas tools starting at just $149.99. Real Steel. Find yours at steeldealers.com.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. All brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk. He is Matthew Citak. The phone number for you is 201-939-4513. Very busy show today. This is our first show since the Giants' final preseason game against the Jets. We also have a rapid reaction to that game up on the Giants Huddle podcast. Go check that out. We had some roster moves yesterday as well, and then Matt and I will give you our predictions on who we think the initial 53-man roster is going to be. We'll call it the initial 53 because we expect there will be some changes once you get through waivers and stuff like that. And heck, you might even have a trade between now and tomorrow at 4 o'clock when the final cuts have to take place. Mr. Citak, how was your Sunday quasi-off?
I mean, I guess it was good. I was so wiped from Saturday night that I made it to the gym, and that was about it yesterday.
Made it to the gym. Yeah, I had like a 6-hour. Well, I guess it's back and forth if you count the travel. I took my daughter to Coney Island to the Brooklyn Aquarium. So we were in the aquarium for 3 hours. I walked her through the amusement park. We did not go on any rides. It's actually pretty nice.
That's a big day after the day we had Saturday.
Dude, I got home last night. I was exhausted. I had
imagine.
nothing left in the tank. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on the game, guys, because quite frankly, the Giants did not play around 45 players in the game. Most of which are going to be guys that are going to be on that initial 53-man roster. So to me, there's not a whole lot to take out of the game. But here are the important points that I would like to touch on, Matt, that you can touch on whatever you want to touch on. Obviously, the guys that did play that we think will be a significant part of this roster. One is John Michael Schmitz. He's going to be the starting center week 1. He got rolled up on from behind on a play, hurt his ankle. MRI was pending yesterday. Brian Daboll did not have the results when he spoke to the media yesterday yet, but he said, as much as Brian Daboll will downplay an injury in his history of doing press conferences, he seemed to do that a little bit with John Michael. But yeah, he's walking around fine. The whole second half of the game, he was in sneakers, standing on the sideline. He didn't have any ice on his ankle or anything like that. As far as I could tell, he never went back for x-rays. So it doesn't seem to be that serious, but obviously when you have a starter, first regular season game now is 13 days away. We'll keep an eye on that, right? The other guy that I want to touch on is Evan Neal, who also got rolled on a sack. He got, I believe they sacked Tommy DeVito on the play, and the pile kind of rolled into the back of his legs. He got knocked down. He had an injury to that same left ankle area, which is what he had the fracture in last year. They're doing MRI. We don't have the results of that yet. Hopefully, Brian Daboll will have more on that when he talks to the media tomorrow. But much like John Michael Schmitz, he was standing the entire second half on the sideline, wearing sneakers on both feet, no ice, no crutches, no boots, anything like that. So I think the hope is that neither of those injuries are going to be serious or long-term.
Yeah, after the game, Schmitz spoke in the locker room, and he seemed pretty adamant that there was nothing to worry about. He said, I don't know the exact quote, but basically said that he had no doubt that he'd be ready to go for the Vikings game. Obviously, you never know with these sort of injuries, especially with offensive linemen, but based on, as you said, his actions after the injury on the sideline and then his reaction in the locker room after the game, I will wait for the MRI results. But
Evan Neal, by the way, spoke in the locker room too, and he didn't seem to think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So
Schmitz first, he seemed like it was, not a big deal. Well, we should find out, when Coach Daboll speaks to the media tomorrow. But hoping for the best. It seems like it's heading in that direction, but we'll have to wait and see for sure. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Neal, pretty much the same sentiment in the locker room after. He was a little bit, I would say, more wary just because it's the same ankle that he had surgery on.
I agree.
And so he wouldn't go out and, 100% say, everything's completely fine. But he was pretty adamant that, he didn't really get injured. It was more like it's the same ankle he got rolled up on, the same ankle that had surgery. So, they're going to play it safe, go for an MRI, and see what comes out of that.
And he was already almost at a snap count for the game anyway, which is why they didn't want to push it.
Yeah, so he also said this after the game, that going into the game, the Giants had a plan to play him for around 20 snaps. And I think it was either the 19th or 20th snap that play that he got rolled up on happened. So it seemed like a pretty logical place to just take him out of the game at that point. He did give up the 1 sack when he was out there. But other than that one play, and you and I briefly were messaging about this during the game, I thought Neal looked pretty good out there, especially in the run game. He was just using his tremendous size to just move people and was creating big holes for Dante Miller to run through.
Yeah, he was down blocking and just bulldozing people out of the hole.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the sack and then getting rolled up on, that's going to, create the headlines and get the most eyeballs on it. But the fact of the matter is, he looked pretty solid on that first drive.
Yeah, he had 10 pass protection snaps. That sack was the only pressure he allowed in his snaps. Now, again, remember, this is against second and third stringers, so take it with a grain of salt. Though Takk McKinley has been a prominent player in this league for a long time. He was a starter on the Falcons team that I believe went to the Super Bowl, right? Across from Vic Beasley, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was on that team, right?
I think
he might have been the year after. But anyway, but he's been a starter in this league for a while, and he's a somewhat accomplished pass rusher. So, yeah, I'm with you. I thought Neal was okay. You don't like the 1 sack he gave up.
Of course.
But I think that does lead into the other kind of takeaway out from that game. Now, look, you didn't have Aaron Stinney play. He's the Giants' primary backup. But little too much pressure on Tommy DeVito for my liking. Even though it was the backups, you're always looking for depth at the tackle position, Matt. Now with the injury to Evan Neal, all 3 other Giants offensive tackles gave up sacks in the game, Azudu, Miles, and Nelson. You don't like to see that. So that would be the only other thing that I kind of took away from offensively for the Giants, is that was not thrilled with the pass protection from the backup offensive tackles in the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, Neal and Azudu, we'll obviously get into this a little bit later, but Neal and Azudu, I think we both project to make the final roster. Outside of those 2 guys, we're not sure if any of the other offensive linemen that played will make it. So while it is definitely, a little bit of a cause for concern, I would say it's not, I don't want people going out there thinking, oh, the Giants, back to where we were last year with the offensive line. Like, all of the Giants' best linemen were not playing in this game. So it's important just to, keep that in mind before we start, ringing the alarms about the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. But again, if Josh Azudu right now is your swing guy, you don't like seeing him giving up a couple sacks.
No, that is definitely true. You don't like to see that. And, we'll have to wait and see what the Giants' plans are for that swing tackle spot.
And one of those was a bull rush from a rookie too. Like a rookie put him right on skates into the backfield, which you don't like to see.
Yeah, definitely not. The only other thing I came away with, at least from the offense to start the game, Dante Miller, the first couple touches showed exactly what we saw in that first preseason game, which was the last time we saw him in a game situation because he missed the Texans game, but I think I had him down for 18 yards on his first 3 touches, which included a reception. The end of game stats ended up, I guess not looking quite as impressive, but he looked explosive on those first few touches. And I don't know if he's going to end up making the 53-man roster, but if he does not, I certainly hope that that's someone they could at least get on to the practice squad.
Yeah, I don't have much else to take out of that game, to be honest with you. Looking at my notes, defensively, again, Benton Whitley made a couple of plays in the game. I thought Boogie Basham, which you would expect going against the Jets' second and third string offensive line, that he would have some plays in the game. He had some plays in the game. KJ Cloyd, I thought he was very active at 16 tackles. Was interested. I looked it up this morning, though. He didn't play one special team snap the whole game.
Really?
Which for a linebacker is very odd.
Yeah, that definitely is odd. But on defense, he was all over the field.
He was all over the field.
I mean, obviously, final box score he had, I think it was 16 tackles, a lot of which were in the run game, which you love to see. Whitley, I had 3 players that I wrote down as like, I don't want to say standouts, but guys that caught my eye on Saturday night, all three from the defense. Cloyd was one, obviously, just tackling machine. Whitley was another. He seemed to just be getting into the backfield pretty consistently.
He played 17 special team snaps, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, he also contributed on special teams. That could be an interesting potential guy to make the roster.
Stay tuned for a future conversation.
And then the other guy, Tomon Fox, I thought played.
Yeah, he did. I agree.
I thought he had a pretty good game as well. I think that is someone that I would love if the Giants could sneak him onto the practice squad. I feel like that give him some time to develop more, work with Andre Patterson.
Has he been there for 2 years already? Or just 1 year?
I believe last year.
Was that his rookie year last year? Or was that his...
Actually, I think it was his... Last year was his second year. Yeah, he's been with the team since 2022.
2022, yeah. So this would be his third year on the practice squad.
Yeah, so... Yeah, those are the three guys that opened my eye a little bit on Saturday night.
There's no better place to watch live TV this fall than Hulu Plus Live TV. Why? Because you get your favorite sports like football, local channels, shows, and so much more. Plus, get Hulu's entire streaming library with Disney Plus and ESPN Plus included with your plan. No long-term contracts or hidden fees. Don't wait. Start your 3-day free trial of Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for new and eligible returning subscribers only if available. Terms and restrictions apply. Learn more at hulu.com.
No, I think that makes sense. A note here from Tom Pelissero today, which I just noticed. It came out 10 minutes before the show. Important note as teams construct their initial 53-man rosters. NFL teams were informed today that the NFLPA vetoed, and I know they could even do this, the revised emergency third quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a bona fide quarterback from the practice squad an unlimited number of times throughout the year. So the rule reverted to the 2023 version, which I guess would be the 2022 version then, right? Which says the emergency third quarterback must be on the 53-man roster, not an elevation. So that kind of moves the conversation to the main crux of these next couple of days, Matt, where we're trying to figure out what the Giants do with their initial 53. And I think we'll start with the quarterback spot. We'll go position by position here, right? Both of us, I think, expected the Giants to go to 3 quarterbacks here. And now that this rule is in place where you can't elevate that practice squad quarterback as your third one to be an emergency guy, I think it makes it even more important to put the quarterback on the 53. And again, doesn't change the calculation for me. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito, I'd be very surprised if all 3 of those guys are not on the initial 53.
Yeah, completely agreed. I mean, it seems like we were very much heading in that direction with Tommy DeVito as the third quarterback on the roster even before this came out today. I think just last year, DeVito showed enough in that 3-game winning streak to show that, he can be an NFL quarterback.
Yep.
And so I don't think the Giants were going to want to risk waiving him and having someone else claim him. And then all of a sudden you have 2 quarterbacks. One we haven't even seen on the field really more than a handful of practice snaps in weeks now in Drew Lock, and a starting quarterback, Daniel Jones, that obviously has had some injury concerns over the years. So it doesn't surprise me. It would surprise me if the Giants had anything other than 3 quarterbacks going into this regular season, with Tommy DeVito being the third. And I just think this new, or I guess the announcement of the same quarterback rule will just lead to the same 3 quarterbacks that we've had all summer.
Now, as we break down the remainder of this roster and what it might look like, the Giants did announce the release of 10 players on Sunday. Kyler Ball, who would only here for a couple of days, he got brought in last week. Breon Borders, the cornerback Christian Holmes, defensive back Clayton Isbell, wide receiver John Giles, he was one of the undrafted free agents. I could see him being a potential practice squad guy. Joshua Kelly, running back. Trey Kaiser, the linebacker. Lorenzo Lingard, the running back. Marcus McKeithen, who was a 5th-round pick back in the 2022 NFL draft. Thank you. And then wide receiver Ayer Asante. All right, so let's roll through. None of those guys were necessarily a huge surprise to me, Matt. I'm not sure if any of them were.
No, not at all. I mean, most of those guys were like the most recent signings of the Giants, guys that they seem like they brought in more so to cover up the fact that other guys that are going to make the team have been injured, and they just needed bodies out there.
Yeah, McKeithen might be a name that catches some Giant fans by surprise, but if you watch kind of where he was slotted in the depth chart over the course of the summer, the writing was kind of on the wall there.
Yeah, he's been at the bottom of the depth chart among the guards all summer, and it's definitely the most noteworthy just because it is a draft pick of this current regime. But honestly, having watched the team for the last month, it's not that surprising at all.
All right, so let's go position by position. Let's go to running back first, Matt.
Okay.
I know we had debated whether or not a fourth guy might sneak their way on, but I think both of us probably ended the same way. And we even compared lists here, by the way, so we're going through this together for the first time. Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, and Eric Gray for me.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, and Dante Miller, I think that's a guy you try to get on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think they would love to get him onto the practice squad. I know I personally would love to see him there, give him a little more time to develop, take some practice reps and stuff. But yeah, as we know with the waiver process, you never know what could happen.
All right, now let's go to tight end because this is where I think it starts to get interesting. Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz. I think those guys are all easily on the roster.
Same here.
None of those three guys played in the game. It's a good guess that if somebody didn't play and they were healthy on Saturday, that they're probably going to be on the roster.
Probably, yes.
Now, whether you want to call him a fullback or a tight end, one of my last guys on was Jakob Johnson, the recent addition. I guess he signed just about 10 days ago, right? He signed right before preseason game number 2, where he's your fullback, he's your tight end. The reason I put him on, though, is that he played almost every special team snap in the game on Saturday against the Jets, and I think he could be a valuable special teams player in addition to giving you some flexibility as a fullback. What makes me hesitate, though, and I'm not sure about this one, he can very easily not be on the roster here, Matt. They use Daniel Bellinger as a fullback a ton over the past couple of years, and I think they like the way he blocks in that spot, so I'm not sure if they necessarily see the value there with having a guy to be a fullback when you have a guy like Bellinger on the roster who has shown that he can play that role.
Yeah, I also have Jakob Johnson making the 53-man roster. I slightly disagree with you on the last point you just made.
Disagree? What do you got?
I think, well, first of all, you are 100% right that they, I think they definitely value Jakob Johnson's contributions on special teams. Especially considering, as we've spoken about, putting together this roster is a puzzle, and finding those guys that can contribute on kickoff coverage, on punt coverage.
All 4 units. All four.
It's
huge.
Very valuable. So a guy that can be versatile like that is big. But I think, this raised some eyebrows from myself when they brought him in, because he has all of that experience in Las Vegas with Carmen Brasillo.
No, and that's a factor. I agree with that.
I think that they like the fact that, he can line up at tight end if needed, but I think we haven't really seen it, with this current coaching staff, but I think they want an actual fullback. I think that'll help, obviously, with the run game, help in pass protection. I think that combined with his experience with Carmen Brasillo, that when they brought him in 10 days ago, it wasn't like your typical, let's just take a flyer on this veteran and, see what he has. I think they brought him in with a purpose, just my personal opinion. And yeah, I think he will be on the 53-man roster, contribute on special teams, and we'll see him on offense as well.
Yeah, look, I know they used the fullback a lot in the preseason, but my sense of this offense, though, is that you're going to see mostly 3 wide receiver sets as their base offense, and between that and whatever times they use 4 wide receiver sets, well, I don't think will be seldomly. I think you're looking at 80% of their snaps will be with either 3 or 4 wide receivers, maybe 75%. Because, they'll probably use 12%, like 20% of the time, something like that. So I just don't know how much they'll use them. It'll be interesting. That was one of the guys I had trouble with. Let's go to the offensive.
Wait, just real quick.
Yeah,
also,
please.
with the tight ends, I know Chris Manhertz, he's just your blocking tight end.
Correct.
Like, could he catch some passes throughout the year? Sure. But he's going to make the team for his blocking. And that leaves just Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger as your only, real full tight ends, like guys that can do, or you expect them to do sort of everything.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think they will want Bellinger to kind of focus more on that and have a guy that they can put in that fullback position and let Bellinger just play tight end.
Would you consider using one of those 2 IR spots on Cager?
It depends how far away he is. We haven't really heard much how the severity of the injury.
My sense is that I think they would feel okay if, you'd have to waive injure him. That's the problem, because then, you can't waive him if a guy's hurt. So that's something they would have to figure out then the same way they did with Ryder Anderson. So
yeah, I don't think I would use one of the 2 returns, IR spots where the guy could return, I don't think I would, because it counts towards the 8 that you'll have for the regular season that you could bring back.
It does.
And I think between those other 3 the 3 tight ends that we just discussed, I think they'll feel comfortable rolling with those 3. I think Theo Johnson could have a slightly bigger role in the passing game early on in the year, which maybe a month ago I would have said may not be the case. But I think that they're getting a lot more comfortable with him as the, receiving tight end.
I agree with that.
So I don't think Kadra will land on the IR.
Fair enough. I happen to agree with you. All right, let's go to wide receiver here before we get to the O-line. Neighbors, Wanda, Robinson, Hyde, and Slayton. Those are the easy guys. I put Miles Boykin on. Again, you go back to the second preseason game and the third preseason game. The guy's on every special teams play. He's just a guy that they like in that situation. And then I put Isaiah McKenzie on. Though I got to be honest with you, wasn't the cleanest performance in the third preseason game out of him. And if Gunnar was healthy, I would have considerations about that, but Gunnar's not healthy. So maybe that's a guy you use one of the IR spots on. I don't know how they're going to handle that. Maybe they think they can, I don't know how they're going to handle that. But I think just because I don't know who else they would put in that punt return spot at this point, Matt, who else on the roster can you even slot in there at this point? I think McKenzie has to be on.
Yeah, so this is where we have our first difference.
You got the 7.
No. I have 6, and I included Miles Boykin because I agree. I think he's probably the best gunner the Giants have on the roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have Gunner making it over Isaiah McKenzie.
I just don't know what his injury situation is.
This obviously we have the same amount of information on that, so it's not like I know something that you don't. That's that muffed punt from McKenzie on Saturday night. I believe that was his second this summer. His second muffed punt. And I mean, yes, between Gunner and Isaiah, we've been pretty steadfast that one of them will make it. That guy, yes, he's going to be your primary returner, but he also, if something happens to Wandell in the middle of a game, that's probably, I know Hyatt could play in the slot, but if you want a real, stereotypical slot receiver, it's that guy that's going to then fill in for Wandell.
I agree.
And so...
Look, I will agree with you. If you told me today that Gunner's good for week 1, he would be my guy on my list. I just don't know.
I don't know either. I guess it's a hunch. Did McKenzie come out of Saturday's game?
No, I think he was okay.
He was okay?
Yeah, he didn't get hurt.
Okay. Yeah, I put Gunner over him with this the caveat that he's close to returning, which we don't know for sure.
Fair
if
enough.
they still think, there's no way he'll be ready for the Vikings, then I would flip-flop it. I would have McKenzie over
More
Gunner.
than fair. I have 9 offensive linemen. Matt,
I have 10.
you got the 10. That was so you must have 26 offensive players, huh? Not 24?
I do.
Okay, interesting.
do.
I wish I had make it even at 25 and 25. All right, so
in an ideal world, that's what we would have done. But
no, and by the way, it was a lot easier for me to find offensive players to put on the roster than defensive players. So
True.
I almost did what you did to go 26, 24, to be honest with you. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So the easy ones: Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, Gray Van Roten, Illuminor, Stinney, Neal. Both of us have Azudu. We talked about that earlier in the show. And then I put Jake Kubas on as my last one. I think it's a guy they thought maybe they could fit on the practice squad, but as I went through, I didn't see another player that made me willing to risk losing him if you like him as a player, right? So if there was someone else that I gotta have this guy, all right, I'll try to squeeze Jake onto the practice squad, fine. But I didn't find that guy going through my list. So I put Kubas on as my 9th guy.
yeah, so I have the same 9 that you just said. I think Kubas has shown enough throughout training camp, throughout the preseason games, where he deserves a spot on the roster. I think he's just, played well. You bring undrafted rookies in hoping that you can find like a diamond in the rough. I'm not saying he hasn't, shown enough where I would go that far, but he's definitely shown flashes of just being a very solid offensive lineman, someone that they could continue to develop. He's basically only played guard since coming here, but maybe that's another guy that they try training to also potentially fill in at center if needed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't heard of any buzz of that, but that seems like a type of player that you could try doing that with. So I have those 9. But then I have a 10th, Austin Schlottmann. And now the reason I have him making the team, two primary reasons. One, I think the memory of what happened with the offensive line last year is will still be very much at the forefront of the front office's minds. They're obviously a lot better prepared to deal with a situation like that if it were to somehow happen. They focus on depth, starters and depth at the offensive line this offseason. But I don't think you can have too many offensive linemen. And Schlottmann, while he did give up a sack Saturday night against the Jets, prior to that, he had looked pretty good in the preseason games. His performance against the Texans, I thought, was potentially his best of the summer. When he came in for John Michael Schmidt's 10, 12 snaps in the game, I think he had Pro Football Focus had him for like around 20 pass blocking snaps without giving up a pressure. I thought he showed enough, and I thought, they brought him in this offseason. I don't know the details. I don't remember the details of his contract, but I think that they brought him in because they wanted to have a backup center. And, I know, obviously Greg Van Roden was taking snaps at center a couple weeks ago when John Michael Schmitz was not practicing. But if you think about it, if something happens to John Michael Schmitz, yes, you can move Greg Van Roden to center and then have Stinney come in at guard. But then you're having two different linemen basically new positions. And, we talk about continuity on the O-line all of the time. I think if they're comfortable with just putting Schlottmann in at center, you at least, if John Michael Schmitz were to get hurt, could keep the other four guys the same and have some level of continuity as you deal with this, potential injury. So that's why I have Schlottmann making it 10 offensive line.
Yeah, Schlottmann, Jakob Johnson, who got on, and Allen Robinson are my last three offensive players on. And I was debating which one of those three I had one spot left I would give the spot to. I ended up going with Johnson because I tried to keep the offense to
Wait, so you had
25.
7 wide receivers?
No, I said I went with Johnson. So Robinson and Schlottmann were off. Yes. All right, so let's go to defense here. I think we're going to have a couple differences. Defensive line, these are the interior guys, folks, not the edge class. I have Dexter Lawrence, Nacho, DJ Davidson, Elijah Chapman. Those are easy. And then just because I think you want a traditional nose tackle, and he hasn't flashed much in the offseason, I did put Jordan Riley on, even though he did play into the fourth quarter of that game.
I have the same 5.
Oh, you put Riley on, huh?
I did put, we very briefly discussed this a couple hours ago, and I told you I'm still toying with it.
I know you were still messing with it. I know.
I toyed with it. I had Riley as the 5th. I will say, I think of those 5, Riley would be my last one on.
I'm with you on that.
And I do think that is a position that the Giants will look to see who becomes available tomorrow.
I'm with you.
With waiver wire claims. So I do have those 5, but I think there is at least somewhat of a chance if a good defensive tackle becomes available and the Giants awarded him on waivers that guy would then replace Riley at the bottom of the roster.
Edge, I only have 4. Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Azeez Ojulari, and Boogie Basham.
I have the same 4. I tried to find a way to keep Benton Whitley because he played well all summer, and I feel like you should be rewarded. I mean, they go through training camp and preseason to try to find guys that are battling for a spot, and I think he deserves it. I couldn't find who he would be replacing.
I felt better in the preseason games than in practice. That was my sense watching Whitley.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
We never saw him get lined up against 1s and 2s. He was always against 3s. And I feel like if they wanted to get him on, Dable would have tried to get him in a situation where he was going against 1s or 2s like he did with Chapman and a couple other guys. So, all right, so we're on the same page there. Inside linebacker, Okereke, McFadden, Darius Musow, Carter Coughlin, Matthew Adams. Coughlin and Adams are your special teamers in the group, the same way you had Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin last year. Adams kind of replaces him. Musow was a rookie draft pick. You want to keep him, obviously. And then I kept the 6th guy, Deontay Johnson. And again, this is an injury factor, folks. He might be a guy, if he is seriously injured, that they say, we're going to use one of the IR spots on him. And we talked earlier today when you were putting your list together, but way before it was finalized. You're like, well, don't you think they could fit Deontay Johnson in the practice squad? I said, yeah, I think you could. But this is a guy that they, not because of injury to anybody else, were giving first team reps to in practice. And I feel like they think he has something to him. You look at him physically, he's built like an NFL linebacker. So I think he's going to be important enough to this coaching staff where they don't want to risk losing him, and they're going to either use one of those IR spots on him if the injury is serious, or if they think he's going to be back for week 1, I think they'll figure out a way to get him on the 53.
Yeah, so I only have 5 inside linebackers, with Deontay Johnson being the odd man out.
Yep.
Of all the positions, especially on the defense, this one I think is the biggest question mark, just because between Deontay Johnson, Micah McFadden, and Matthew Adams, those are 3 guys that have been hurt. And we don't really know the severity of the injuries. We don't know how close any of them are to really getting back. Carter Coughlin just returned to practice, a couple of days ago. So other than Bobby Okereke, who obviously is the anchor of the middle of the defense and your number 1 linebacker, and Darius Musa, who's a rookie 6th-round pick, the other 3 or 4 guys that we're talking about, we don't know how close they are to game action. Obviously, Carter Coughlin is the closest since he's already back at practice, but the other 3, we really don't know. I wanted to, again, similar to Benton Whitley, I wanted to find a way to put Deontay Johnson on the team. It's just he's been out for a few weeks now.
No, I get it. I get it.
He spent all of last year on the practice squad, where any other team, if they wanted to, could have signed him. And the Giants, unless they signed him to their own active roster, would have had to let him go. We only saw him in 1 preseason game, that first game against the Lions, which I will say he did look good. But given all that, I feel like they'll go with 5 and take a chance. Especially if he's injured. Well, I guess then they would have to be waived injured again. Right?
Yeah, so they'll have to figure that out.
I feel like that's someone, there's I would say at least a decent chance that you could sneak him onto the practice squad. And again, given the injuries at that position, could be someone that then gets elevated and signed to the active roster soon after, tomorrow's deadline.
Yeah, and the other reason I had him on too, Matt, is that behind Okereke and McFadden, with Coughlin and Adams being primarily special teamers, a rookie 6th-round pick is your backup linebacker.
Who also projects to be a special teamer this year.
Right, but like week 1, God forbid, Micah McFadden re-aggravates whatever he's dealing with now. He's leaving the first quarter. You feel okay with Darius Musa playing 55 snaps? Week 1 against Minnesota?
Not entirely.
I feel if Deontay Johnson's healthy, I feel better about that. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted him on the.
But this would also,
if he's healthy enough, which I
I was gonna say this would also be a Deontay Johnson who probably hasn't practiced in close to a month.
No, that's true too. Now maybe he's back at practice tomorrow and he practiced for 2 weeks. I have no idea. So again, that's what, to your point. That's why linebacker is such a tough position to do because of the injuries.
But given the injury situation, that is another position I think the Giants will look on the waiver wire, see who becomes available.
I think most of these defensive spots is to be looking.
I was gonna say, if you told me going into training camp that I would, my personal opinion, that they would not be looking at any offensive position on the waiver wire. It would only be looking at defensive positions. I would have thought you were crazy. But, given the injuries and the depth at certain spots, this is where we are.
All right, let's knock out corner and safety. I want to get to the calls. We got 3 people on the line here. Corner, I'm guessing we have the same group. I have 5, Deontay Banks, Cordell Flott, Drew Phillips, Nick McLeod, Trey Hawkins.
Yeah. I just had Isaiah Simmons as part of that because you could put
him in the corner group. I have him in the safety group. That's fine.
Yeah.
No difference. I could see them looking to add a corner here, whether it's by a trade or free agency.
Same.
And whether that's keeping the 6th guy or then maybe we'll see about Trey. Though he didn't play in that last preseason game, so I'm thinking his spot is fairly secure here. But we'll see what happens at corner. And then at safety, Tyler Nubin, Jason Pinnock, Dane Belton, Isaiah Simmons. Then I did put Javarius Owens on. Again, I don't know about the injury there. And that's another spot where I could see, all right, well, if we find someone better, we could, make a move there. And that's probably where you have 1 fewer player to make up for Schlottman making it, right? You only have the 4 safeties, or 3, I guess, or?
No, I have 4.
Oh, you had the 1 fewer linebacker. That's right. You had the 1 fewer linebacker. Okay, that's right.
I agree. I had, I put Javarius Owens down as the 4th, real safety. Again, Isaiah Simmons, wherever you want to.
He's floating nebulously on the defense.
Just call him defensive player.
Yes.
I put Javarius Owens down. Not so much because of what he's done this summer, because he's been hurt. I don't even remember the last time we saw him out there.
Week 3 of practice, maybe, something like that.
It's more so for the fact that I don't think the Giants will want to go into the regular season with only 3 true safeties, because I do think between Pinnock, Newman, and Belton, I think all three of those guys are going to play a good amount this year. I think, I do think two will end up, I guess, sort of rising to the top and get more playing time than the third. But I do think that all three are going to see time in the secondary.
I might call an audible here, Matt. I'm rethinking one of my decisions.
Which is what?
I might want to put Trey Herndon on as my sixth corner instead of Javarius Owens as my fourth safety.
And just go with three true safeties?
Yeah, and Simmons being my fourth guy.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be shocked.
Trey Herndon not playing in that game weirded me out.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, he did have the interception in that first preseason game.
And he's played slot in the NFL. Like, who's your, I guess Nick McLeod is your second slot guy. But
he's a guy that's currently somewhat in a battle to be the second outside corner.
Right. You know what?
Especially with Flott injured.
I'm making that change. I'm going to take Javarius Owens off. I'm sliding in Trey Herndon.
I mean, I like Trey Herndon because he's my boy from Vanderbilt.
He is a Vandy guy.
Go
How about me putting the Vandy guy on and you leaving him off? Actually, I like this decision even more now.
This was one I will say I hope you are right and I am wrong because I would love to have a Vandy guy on the roster. I wouldn't be surprised by that, though. I mean, Trey Herndon, again, is a guy that they brought in who, as soon as they brought him in, became, I think, the most experienced corner on the team or right up there. Experience in the slot. You're right that, Drew Phillips gets hurt. You don't have anyone else that's like set in the slot. Like
Simmons will play the slot, but he's not like a 3-down slot guy.
No, you don't want Isaiah Simmons lining up in the slot against CeeDee Lamb in the slot.
God forbid they put Justin Jefferson in the slot week one. You don't want that.
That's not something you want.
No.
I like what I've seen from Isaiah Simmons out of the slot, but it definitely depends on the matchup, who the offense has lined up in there. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Trey Herndon ended up making it. And again, as you said, somewhat notable that he did not play against the Jets on Saturday night.
All right, I want to get to your calls here, 201-939-4513. But first, don't forget, you can check out the Giants Fan Fest, free and open to the public. It takes place on Friday, September 6th, presented by Wendy's, MetLife Stadium. Doors open at 5. 100th season of Giants football, big-time celebration, a ceremony honoring the top 100 Giants, autographs, panel discussions, historic displays, photos with the Lombardi trophies, and a drone and fireworks show to end the night. Get your tickets now by visiting Giants.com/fanfest. Then you can crash in your car overnight, and you can go to the walk the next day. You can run a walk with Giants legends at the Giants Foundation to host a 5K and Kids Run presented by Quest Saturday, September 7th, 9 a.m. at Life Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. After the race, post-race festival, appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at Giants.com/5K. All right, let's get to your calls here. 201-939-4513. We'll try to squeeze in as many of you as we can. And then Paul and Howard will be on tomorrow, and they'll do a full show of calls on the roster as well. So if you can't get in today, we'll make sure we get you in tomorrow. Let's go to James in Georgia. He'll lead us off on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac.
Well, what's going on, guys?
What's up, James?
Hey, James.
Nothing much. I was just calling to, get ready for the season, get excited. I'm not completely worried about the lack of production in the preseason because, again, we're not game planning or anything like that. We're only game planning our own team stuff.
Yeah, James, and we were told that Brian Dable's offenses were purposely very vanilla in these preseason games, so I would not take a lot out of that.
I think with being year 3, Daniel Jones knows enough of the offense where they probably just went with some of the stuff they weren't comfortable with in practice, that they weren't getting 1,000%, and they just want to see a better look of it,
Sure.
That's how I'm thinking of it. I think a lot of the people are scared about the depth and the roster. I mean, we're getting disrespected at every level, honestly. They got us. I'm playing Madden right this second, actually. They got us ranked as the last team in the whole game, which, to me, that's just disrespectful. But
which, by the way, James, and we went through this when I think some power rankings came out back in June. The Giants are not the least talented roster in the NFL, and frankly, it's not even close. So I haven't played Madden in 15 years. I know a lot of people take the Madden ratings seriously. I care as much about the Madden ratings as I do what my 7-year-old daughter says about how players are in the NFL. So I just don't care. It's a video game.
And my last point, have they said what Neighbors is going to settle on number-wise? Because I'm ready to buy a jersey. My only jersey right now is that running back that we lost.
Well, James, I will tell you, I am all Dave. You talk after him, jeez. I am now. Did you name Saquon or Barkley? Because Barkley would make sense for a dog. Okay, that would make sense. I got you.
We talked about this before.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah, I also I want to get my daughter a Neighbors jersey, so I am also eagerly awaiting what number he decides to settle on. Yes.
I seen it in the store yesterday at number 9. I'm like, I was ready to get it, but then I said, if he changes numbers, I'm going to be looking crazy during the season. So I'll just go ahead and wait.
We don't know.
Thank you, James.
We don't know yet what number Malik is going to be wearing. But if I remember correctly, it was the Tuesday practice of Cut Down Day last year where we first saw Deontay Banks and Jalen Hyatt in their new numbers.
Was it that early?
They had numbers during training camp. Jalen Hyatt was 84. Deontay Banks, I want to say, was 36.
36 or 37. It was some weird number, yeah.
And then I believe it was either the Tuesday or Wednesday of this week last year, where we saw them wear, Hyatt in 13 and Banks in 25, which is what he wore last year for the first time. So we don't know for sure. We don't know what it will be either, but I would say that there is a good chance that we will find out in the next couple of days.
Hopefully by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know fans
before the team breaks for the Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, I know fans are eagerly awaiting it. So are we. Curious to see what number he wears.
We are too.
I want to get him. I know he's not going to want to do this. Get him a nice wide receiver number in the 80s. Like give him 88 or something like that.
I feel like
that.
Giants fans, we love the number 88 because of Hakeem Nicks.
Yeah. 88 also has
was it Ike Hilliard also in 88?
Good question. Ike was a little before my time when I started covering the team.
Well, Neighbors was in an interview recently where he said, I would like something even numbered from 1 to 10.
Yeah, even number. Oh, so
there's not many options.
So that would take number 1 out then, right?
Like 2, 4.
And those are mostly retired. I mean, 6, depending on what happens to Bryce Ford Wheaton. No, but that's also
Jamie Gillen.
He's also Jamie Gillen. That's right.
Yeah, so Ike Hilliard was 88.
He was 88.
Along with Hakeem Nicks. So I feel like as Giants fans, we have good memories with wide receivers in that number.
And also in the division, historically, the Cowboys give all their best wide receivers 88
it's true.
As well.
But, yeah, based on that comment that Pearson just brought up, maybe he tries to work something out with Jamie Gillen. I don't know how tied Jamie is to the number 6.
Because two's retired, so you can't take 2.
I think 1's retired, 2's retired, 4's retired.
Yep. Drew Lock wearing 2 right now?
Oh yeah, Drew Lock is 2 right now.
Oh yeah, you're
Drew
right.
Lock
2 is not.
2 is not retired.
Yeah.
That's right.
But if Drew Lock gives up 2, then where does he go?
I need to have those retired numbers memorized. I don't have them memorized the way I should.
1, 4, 7. I think those are the only single-digit numbers.
It's a great question.
So we have a 2. We have Deontay Banks is 3, Kayvon's 5, Gillen 6, DJ 8, and then Graham Gano
3,
9.
4, 11, 20, 22, 24. Oh, this is
You're looking
San
at
Francisco Giants.
I was going to say Deontay Banks is number 3.
Yes, I was going through. I'm like, this doesn't sound right at all. Okay, so we got number 1 for Ray Flaherty, Tuffy Liebens at number 4, Mel Hine at number 7, Eli obviously at number 10, Phil Simms at 11, Y.A. Tittle 14, Frank Gifford 16, Al Blozis 32, Joe Morrison 40, Charlie Connerly 42, Ken Strong 50, LT at 56, Strahan at 92. So those are your retired jerseys.
Yeah.
So there are a fair number of single-digit ones that are available.
I will say, Drew Lock, while he did wear number 2 for the Seahawks, he wore number 3 at the Broncos. So maybe he's not tied to that number.
Trying to see what he wore at Missouri. He wore number 3 at Missouri.
Yeah, so maybe he decides to give the number to Malik and take number 12. I don't think we have a 12 right at the moment.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, we'll find out soon enough.
Yes, I got to do a better job having those numbers, those retired numbers memorized. So in the single digits, the only ones that are retired then are 1,
4, and 7.
4 and 7. All right.
That's 3 numbers though.
It's 3 out of 10.
And that was talking numbers.
Yes, yes, that was talking. Do not use that for the tease, Pearson.
There's no better place to watch live TV this fall than Hulu Plus Live TV. Why? Because you get your favorite sports like football, local channels, shows, and so much more. Plus, get Hulu's entire streaming library with Disney Plus and ESPN Plus included with your plan. No long-term contracts or hidden fees. Don't wait. Start your 3-day free trial of Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for new and eligible returning subscribers only if available. Terms and restrictions apply. Learn more at hulu.com.
Let's go to Wilson at Roxbury. Wilson, you're up next. How are you doing, man?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
What's up, Wilson?
Hey, listen. Obviously, you don't take a lot of stock in a preseason game. I mean, some teams win all the preseason games and they win 5 games in the regular
Well, Wilson,
season.
I certainly don't put stock in a game where you're sitting your 40 best players.
Yeah, I know, but it does in a way give you, leave you with a sour taste in your mouth when you give up 8 sacks, no matter who's playing. You know what I mean, Johnny?
No,
I mean,
totally. Yeah. Hey, look, Wilson, and what my main non-injury takeaway from the game is that I did not like the way the backup offensive line looked, and that's what I said, and I stand by it.
Yeah, I know. And listen, another thing, real quick, and Daniel, listen, I know the Washington Redskins have been a disgrace, right, forever. But do they have any clue what they're doing? I mean, do they? The Philadelphia Eagles, they have a different checking account than we do. How did they send a former first-round pick wide receiver to the Eagles? I mean, and within division, I mean, do they know what they're doing?
Yeah,
or?
Matt, you were tracking what was going on with Dotson in Washington better than I was, right? Like, they were having some issues down there with him, right?
Yeah, so you and I spoke about this, I think it was last week.
Yeah.
So obviously before the trade, Dotson just did not seem to be playing well at all throughout this training camp. And obviously, he was a first-round pick only a couple of years ago. They had high expectations for him, but it's not like he was, lighting it up his first 2 years in the league either.
I know, Matt, but listen, you got to have a little common sense. I mean, if you don't get the best deal, but you can, hey, whatever. Maybe
Would they get a 2
They got a 3 and gave up a 5.
Is that what it was?
And I think they got 2 7s back as well.
That's right. It was a 3 for 5 and 2 7. That's right.
But anyway, and on Daniel Jones, right? Listen, I've been watching football for 45 years. I'm gonna tell you something. If Daniel Jones somehow, if the Giants make the playoffs, he has to win the MVP. Just forget about his play. Just about his mental toughness. I mean, I've seen players get bashed. The local media and the fans. But this is like nationwide. Some of these people, I don't think these people have ever seen Daniel Jones play. And the negativity on this poor kid. I mean, I understand you got to block it out, but he's a human being. I mean, if he somehow exceeds this year, it's amazing.
See, Wilson, we need to get you on the Daniel Jones media consumption plan. You always get wrapped up in what everyone's saying in the national media. You have to take the Daniel Jones
No,
tact.
Johnny, but listen, there's some content behind it. I just happened to flip the channels, right? And I happened to listen a little bit. It was the 49ers against the LA Raiders. I know that the Las Vegas Raiders. And obviously, it was like a local TV, from Las Vegas. So this guy just goes on. Well, listen, the Giants made the playoffs with Daniel Jones. So that if they made the playoffs, I mean, then we definitely can make the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. Just we go 9-7. It was crazy that the Giants made the play. This guy is from Las Vegas, for crying out loud. I'm just saying that, Johnny. 45 years, I never seen nothing like this. I don't know if you have. I never seen nothing like this. So I'm rooting for Daniel even more now because he just gotten out of hand. Yeah. I mean, I know you don't like talking about this stuff, but I mean, you see it, don't you?
Yeah, Wilson.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Wilson. Appreciate the call, bud.
I think Wilson is completely right.
And by the way, Wilson, I actually do have. I think people treat Daniel unfairly as a punching bag. They just say, was Cameron Hayward had some, or was it Jordan Cameron had some type of weird thing out there? Cameron Jordan, sorry, had a weird thing out the other day where he mentioned him randomly in some social video. Come on, guys, chill out here.
Yeah, and I feel like what Wilson said about people from the the national media or across the country. I feel like Daniel Jones could have had the greatest training camp of all time. And his only game action was against the Texans, and then he threw that interception, the pick 6. That's the only thing that anyone would talk about.
That's
I feel like it's very easy for, especially national reporters who don't just spend all of their time watching the Giants to just see that one clip and be like, I'm going to do a two-minute segment about how bad Daniel Jones is because of this one play, and hasn't seen anything else he's done all summer. So you're right that he definitely is, I guess, an easy punching bag for people that are not actually around this team on a daily basis. I don't know. I mean, he'd have to have a pretty special year to be in the MVP conversation. Obviously, that goes for any player. But if Daniel Jones plays well, leads this team to the playoffs, you better believe he'll be in the comeback player of the year conversation.
Yeah, especially coming off the injury, too, for
that
sure.
I feel like is more of, ideal scenario where Daniel Jones could potentially be recognized after the season.
Yeah, Mike Sando came out with his quarterback tiers. He does this every year for The Athletic. He had Jones check in at 23. He doesn't have any rookies on the list, obviously, because they haven't played a game yet, so how are you going to rank them? But, some of the guys that were just ahead of DJ in the tier just above him, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson. And I could easily see by the end of the year Jones being ahead of 1, 2, or 3 of those guys, depending on how the season goes. So that would put him in the 18-ish realm, which is right smack in the middle of the league, which, by the way, is right about where his contract value is.
That's what I was about to say.
I think he's 14th now or something like that.
When he signed that contract, everyone was like, oh, I can't believe you're giving Daniel Jones this much money, all this stuff. But that was before all of these quarterback deals were signed, the ones that we've seen in the last 12 months, and there will be more. Dak Prescott is going to obviously sign a deal and be making more money than Daniel Jones. Whether it happens in the next week or in the next 8 months, it's going to happen. And so, yeah, by the time, we get to this upcoming offseason, Daniel Jones' contract could be very much like square in the middle of quarterback contracts around the league.
Yeah.
Which, if he plays well, that's probably where you would put him in your quarterback rankings anyway.
Right. And now philosophically, we can have the conversation. Is it worth it to, retain a guy that's right in the middle of the league? Are you always aiming for, a top tier guy, and how your team building approaches? That's a different conversation.
But. Yeah, that is a conversation for after the season.
And not for today. That is correct. Let's go to Greg in Atlanta, and then Artie, you'll be next. Greg, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing? How you doing, John and Matt?
We're good. What's up,
Greg?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be as fast as possible.
No,
I'm a diehard Giants fan. I love my team, but I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on the day. But I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm a little frustrated with what I'm seeing, and been frustrated for the last couple of years. And number one, to me, is our QB situation. And I heard all y'all just said about Daniel Jones today, but John interviewed a guy named Warren Sharp not too long ago, and I listened to that interview. And what he said in that interview is exactly how I feel about Daniel Jones. I want him to be good, but his decision-making pre-snap, like we always, every time Daniel Jones come out and perform, we say he needs an offensive line. But there's 32 teams in the league. There are teams that have bad offensive lines, and their quarterbacks still manage to make a play or two in a game.
Well, Greg, here's what I would say to you. I think he had a decent enough offensive line 2 years ago, and I think he did make some plays. Last year, he literally had one of the worst offensive lines in the history of the sport. The Giants allowed the second most sacks in the history of the sport. So I think last year was an outlier. You want to go 2 years back, then we can have a different conversation.
I agree. My whole point is, it's just tough for a fan to see that we can put Tommy DeVito in, and no matter if he's playing with the 1s, 2s, or the 3s, he make plays. He extend plays. He's reading well. He make a pass, and then they put Daniel in, and everything goes bad. I'm to be honest with you guys, I'm done with him. I'm mad at the fact that we let Russell Wilson come in on a visit with a quarterback that's coming off an ACL. We let Russell Wilson come into the building, and the Denver Broncos are paying his contract this year, and we didn't say to ourselves, like, hey, let's bring this veteran in, let Daniel Jones take his time and recover from his ACL, because it almost feels like he has to be ready. Like, we're forcing him to be ready. And I think we took the wrong approach. We should have brought in Russell Wilson for 1 year and let Daniel learn and recover from his injury and let the Broncos pay his contract. And I believe we would have been a much better team.
Well,
but I got a couple more things to say, guys. And
yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah. Hold, Greg, hold on one second. Matt's going to respond to what you said, and then you can finish. Okay, go ahead,
just very quick about Russell Wilson. First of all, he is in a quarterback battle with Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. He may not even be the starting quarterback of the Steelers, first of all. Second of all, it was not completely up to the Giants whether or not Russell Wilson signed. Russell Wilson clearly wanted a situation where at least he thought he was going to be the number one quarterback. And with Daniel, I hear what you said about, giving him time to come back. But one way or the other, Daniel Jones was still on the roster. And given how much he's getting paid, the Giants have motivation to obviously put him out there. Russell Wilson wanted a situation where he could reestablish his value to the league, show that he can still be a quarterback to set himself up for another contract a year from now. So the Giants, obviously, as you said, brought him in, but that doesn't just mean, the Giants decided not to sign him.
Right.
He decided to go to Pittsburgh.
And Greg, I would add this too. They have not, I promise you, they have not rushed or forced Daniel Jones back before he's ready. He looked like he could play back in June, to be totally honest with you. And then one more thing to add. Once you pay a quarterback the way the Giants pay Daniel, there is no sitting behind somebody and learning. Once you have that amount of money invested in a player, for better or worse, he's playing for you. You can't have a $40 million or whatever it is, $36 million if you take the first 3 years, because those are the real years of the contract. A $36, $37 million a year quarterback sitting on the bench learning from somebody. That's never going to happen in the league.
I totally agree with what you just said, John. But also, I feel like the Giants are getting away from best players available, and we are committing ourselves to, we paid this guy, he got to play.
Well, now, Greg, remember, though, but Greg, if you watched Hard Knocks, the Giants made attempts to move up to get a quarterback. So they're still doing what they can, but there's only so much you can do. Good quarterbacks don't grow on trees, you know what I mean? So they clearly were interested in adding somebody at the position around the draft, but much like with Russell Wilson, it's just not up to the Giants, right? You need two to tango here, and there wasn't a team ahead of them that was willing to move down so they could go up and go get one of those quarterbacks that they might have liked.
I'm gonna just run down my little list and then I'm done. But to answer that, John, I feel like Michael Penix was drafted later, Bo Nix was drafted later. Both of these guys are playing absolutely lights out football on the field. We keep missing out on our quarterback.
Greg, I hear you. All I can tell you is my evaluation, and I can show you I've shown Matt the draft board. Both those guys for me were in the 30s in my rankings for overall draft people.
Yeah, both of those guys are playing very well. All right, real quick, I feel like the Giants needed a veteran receiver to go along. Like, we drafted Malik Neighbors, and it's like we putting all our stock in him. We needed a veteran presence in that room. And just for instance, Cordell Patterson, before I talk to you guys, Cordell Patterson is getting $6 million for 2 years. And they put him in the game against the Steelers yesterday, gave him a simple running play up the middle. He took it to the house.
Oh, no, you hit it, Greg, but you hit it. He's a running back now. He's not a wide receiver. He's a running back.
I didn't take Cordell because he answers three positions. You could put him at running back, you could put him at wide receiver, and he definitely lights out at kick return and punt return.
No, look.
So that would have did a lot for us to me.
Greg, no argument on the punt return and kick return part. He's going to be great there. No argument there. But I think purely as a receiver, Darius Slayton is a much better veteran wide receiver than Cordell Patterson is. And it's frankly not close.
No doubt about it.
And it's not close.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. All right. And then, look, with us losing 44-0 to the Cowboys opening the season last year, I just don't feel like we got better. I'm almost looking forward to us being blown out by a few teams this year. And I heard y'all say the rosters are better, but I just don't believe it. The corners and stuff, we need upgrades at corners. We need a lot. The defense is better with the addition of Burns, but our secondary is weak, and our problem was scoring points. I don't think we did anything to fix that.
Wait, Greg, hold on.
Fix the offensive line.
Thanks for the call. Well, let's not use the F word. We haven't seen it yet.
Sorry, improved the offensive line.
Hope that it's better. I'm gonna go with hope that it's better. But I think we've certainly seen progress in the offseason, no question. Then you drafted Malik Neighbors 6th overall, dude.
And getting Andrew Thomas 100% healthy. Like, you brought up that Cowboys game. Let's not forget, Andrew Thomas hurt his hamstring on the last play of the very first drive of the season, proceeded to miss the entire first half of the season.
Yeah.
And that was like a domino effect on the entire offensive line.
Look,
having a healthy Andrew Thomas back, that should help improve the offense as an overall unit.
Personnel-wise, this is the best I've seen this Giants offense. Jeez.
Years.
2016? When Odell was here still? 2017 maybe? But I combine the wide receiver talent with the offensive line play. It's a lot better than it's been. Now, that doesn't mean there are tons of questions, but look, they're improved on the offensive line. They're improved at wide receiver. They're improved at the edge position on defense with the addition of Brian Burns. There's no question about that. Now, do you have questions in the secondary? Absolutely. No one would doubt that. So there are things on defense that you have questions about, but there's no question that they're a more talented team.
No doubt about it. I mean, we just went through that exercise of predicting the roster, and on the offensive side of the ball, there were not really any question marks. I mean, we disagreed slightly on like the amount of players per position, but you know, we spoke about how we didn't think, at least, that the Giants are going to be looking to the waiver wire to really address the offense. It was more towards the defense.
Just to give examples, 2 years ago, Giants make the playoffs. Their second most valuable wide receiver was Isaiah Hodgins. Might not make the team this year. All right, Marcus McKeithen was your first offensive guard off the bench last year when the guy got hurt. He already got released. All right, so I think you have a larger breadth of talent on the roster than you've had in years past. Does that mean that there aren't questions in spots and there aren't holes in some spots? There absolutely are. And they could be debilitating depending on how some of these young guys play. You hope that the young guys play well enough so that they're not and they do well. But look, they're counting on a lot of young guys, Matt, to take the next step this year. You need all your draft picks the last 3 years, whether it's Dane Belton or Cordell Flott or Micah McFadden continues to improve, DJ Davidson, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt. Go down the list. You need Daniel Bellinger. You need the John Michael Schmitz, the guys that you've drafted the last 2 or 3 years to take that next step. And the Giants are depending on a lot of those guys to do that if they're going to win games this year.
Yeah, and as we've continued to say, like, they're not done building the roster. They're still the next, little over 24 hours to fill out the bottom of the depth chart. And I've brought this up so many times, but let's not forget, in that 2022 playoff run, one of the biggest surprise contributors on the defensive side of the ball was Fabian Moreau, who was signed to the practice squad in the lead up to week 1 and was then elevated a week or two later. And until Adoree Jackson went down, was a rock solid number 2 cornerback for the Giants defense. And that was someone that was brought in a week from now. So they're not done building the roster. There will be players on the team that are not currently on the building. That's just a fact.
If Fabian Moreau lines up for the Vikings in week 1 against us and gets a pick, I'm blaming you. Just for the record.
I was praying that, when the Vikings signed Stephon Gilmore, that somehow that would lead to Fabian Moreau getting cut, and maybe we'd have interest bringing him back, but I don't think it's going to go
You talk as much
way.
about Fabian Moreau as Lance used to talk about Harry Douglas.
I just thought he was so underrated in that season. It's because once Adoree Jackson went down and he had to become the number 1 corner, then expectations, moved. But when he was the number 2 corner, he was, I thought, playing such good football.
All right, Artie in New York, he will wrap us up today. Artie, thanks for holding, buddy.
No problem.
What do you got?
Hey, thanks for having me on, and I'm a first-time caller, but I've been a Giant fan since 1956.
That's great, Artie.
So I've seen a lot of these things going on with the Giants over the years, but I want to touch on 2 points. Number one, with the Daniel Jones issue. It really amazes me how people don't have the eyes to see what kind of a talent this guy is. And I say that because when he first came into the scene, Schumer was the coach, but Schumer had at least a decent offensive line. Not a great one, but a decent one. and he thrived on that offensive line. Then Judge comes in, and all of a sudden, the offensive line starts going bad, injuries, whatever the reasons are, and that has been plaguing him until 22, in which 22, the offensive line improved. Not great offensive line, but an adequate offensive line.
Adequate's a good word. Artie, I think adequate is a very good way to describe that 2022 group. It was fine.
Right. So now we look at 23, and the offensive line goes to hell. Let's face it, it was terrible.
Oh, it was bad.
Beyond terrible. Mm-hmm. And this kid, he goes back to throw a pass. He doesn't even have time to look at his first read. He gets bombed and killed. He got hurt because of all the sacks and everything else going on. Did the offensive line improve during the season? A little bit. Enough so that it made DeVito look good, made Taylor look good, and it was too late for Daniel. Now, taking this year, the offensive line has improved. I think they're going to be more than adequate. I hope so. And I think he will thrive, especially now that they got Neighbors. The rest of their receiving core is very solid. I think the running backs look really good. I think this kid is going to finally show a lot of people, beyond what 22 was, how good he really can be. And it's unfortunate that people don't have the eyes to see this, to see the talent there. You know, people say, well, he makes stupid mistakes. Well, you take the game the other day. I'll tell you why he made that mistake. And I played sports all my life, guys. I played minor league ball. I played football in high school. And I'm telling you, the thing that made Daniel throw that interception around the end zone for the pick six was simply because he was trying too hard. He was trying to show people that he could make the plays. And he basically tried too hard. That was the big problem he had.
Yeah, just take the safety, right, Artie? Just take the safety at that point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that bothered me a little bit, but at the same token, I'm trying to look into his mind and what he was trying to do. He was trying to make something happen. And in that case, he should have, like you said, gotten the safety or thrown in the ground, whatever.
I got you, Artie.
I think this kid is going to do well if this offensive line holds up, because the rest of the pieces are fine. Now, I got to tell you one quick interesting note.
Yeah.
Elijah Chapman. You know who he reminds me of? John Mendenhall. Do you remember John Mendenhall?
Yeah, it's funny, Artie. Paul Dottino mentioned that. I forget, it was maybe on the radio broadcast last week, where he's kind of a really shorter, undersized guy, but he was able to use that leverage and quickness to his advantage, right?
And not only that, but he could do sideline to sideline like you wouldn't believe in those days. And he lasted about 3-4 years with the Giants, did very well for them. But the bottom line was this guy, Elijah Chapman, I mean, he looks really – I think he's going to ultimately get a starting role, or at least play a lot of snaps this year. And I think he's going to be very effective.
Well, we'll see.
One other thing, he's quick enough. He could even play a defensive end, or he could even play a inside linebacker. That's how fast and quick he is. I loved the tape when I saw it before the before the preseason and practices started. So I'm hoping everything turns out as this happens, and if the offensive line holds up, Daniel will be fine. And I hope a lot of the listeners will understand that.
Thank you, Artie. Appreciate the call, my friend. You were a big John Mendenhall fan growing up, right? No?
A little before my time.
Yeah, a little bit. Getting a couple of different names on the callers. You could tell we're starting to ramp up to the regular season now, Citak. Are you feeling it a little bit? You starting to feel the juice?
I'm so happy that training camp is just about done. Preseason's over. And we get to start focusing on the regular season.
I know.
And week 1, I'm so pumped about it. I know all listeners are. I know you are. Everyone is. Pearson's ready to go.
Oh, yeah? got like 18 Giants huddles to edit.
We're 10 minutes over. Let's get
Yeah, I know. He wants to go at it. Yes, we are 10 minutes over. A good sign the regular season is, in fact, here. For Pearson Butler and Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. Thank you so much for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. You want tickets, folks? Giants.com/tickets. You can still get your season tickets or single game tickets if you prefer. And Giants TV, that's our TV streaming app. You're on a smart TV, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Fire Stick, whatever. Take your pick. Go download Giants TV. You can get all of our video content, apps, and stuff like that. And the Giants Huddle podcast, go check that out as well. For Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. Tomorrow, it's the Tino and Cross. Reminder, 4 o'clock is the roster deadline. They'll be on at 12:30. If we know what's going on by then, they'll have it. Otherwise, you'll get the Tino's predictions. Cross will make fun of them and question every single one of them, because that's what Howard Cross does. And we'll see you tomorrow. Adios.
Getting ready to take on your lawn? Make your first move with the reliable performance and power of Steel tools. From hedge trimmers and mowers to string trimmers and more, right now save on select gas tools starting at just $149.99. Real Steel. Find yours at SteelDealers.com.